of Baba. Okay, shall we start?
Yes, Uncle.
Okay. Jai Baba, everybody. Welcome to Bombay Center's Thursday meeting. Unfortunately, we are streaming it from various locations and not from the center. The reason being that center is being decorated and spruced up for the forthcoming Baba's birthday. Before I start off, I would like to invite our Lord Meher Baba to please come and join us for this meeting and also to take over the entire proceedings of this get-together. Because in the end, it is only he and he alone who exists.
Can I do the prayer, Uncle?
Now, Janice, could you please do the short prayer, please?
Yes, Uncle. Avtar Meher Baba ki jai. Beloved God, help us all love you more and more, and more and more, and still yet more, till we become worthy of union with you. And help us all to hold fast to Baba's daman till the very end. Avtar Meher Baba ki jai. Avtar Meher Baba ki jai. Avtar Meher Baba ki jai. Thank you, Baba.
Thank you, Janice. Now we come to the hardest part of the session, and that is introducing our speaker today. His name is Alan Connie. He's also known as Coach. He's called Coach because he just recently retired from coaching teams in athletics at the university. He's a big man now, but he is all into Meher Baba. And the stories that the man has to tell are amazing. So without wasting any more time, I would like to hand over to Alan. Sir, it's all yours. Kindly take over. Thank you.
Well,
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, thank you, Sam and Janice and everybody for inviting me for this opportunity to talk about Meher Baba and my life with Meher Baba. It came about at the recent Amar Tithi in Meherabad, where Sam and I were roommates, and very good roommates. We got on wonderfully, and Sam asked me as he was getting ready to leave the last morning, he asked me if I'd be interested in doing the meeting, and I said, sure, over Zoom. So my story begins 55 years ago, and I'll try to give a quick version of it. But I was, like many young people in America and in the Western world at that time, I was what I'd call spiritually awakened and seeking. And I traveled with friends we were living in Boston on the East Coast, going to school in Boston, Cambridge area. And we traveled to California because we heard that's where the spiritual awakening was really happening. And I heard Meher Baba's name in a large ballroom of 2,000 young people in 1970. That was in August of 1970, and it definitely made an impression just hearing his name. That was in San Francisco. Um, a friend and I, as young people did back then, we would hitchhike along the coast of California up north to the state of Oregon. And as we were hitchhiking, we ran into a guy going the other direction who said, if you're ever in Eugene, Oregon, you can stay at my house at 1450 High Street in Eugene. A few days later, we were in Eugene. We went to the house. The house was wide open with no furniture, but there were two posters on the wall. One was of the revolutionary leader Che Guevara, and the other was this beaming face saying, "Don't worry, be happy." And I turned to my friend Stephen and I said, "Who is that?" And he said, "That's Meher Baba, great spiritual teacher from India." It made a great inner impression on me. And we quickly decided, or I decided, to go back to the East Coast. And the first day back at the East Coast, I'm seeing signs of meeting on spirituality, 8:30, Graduate School of Social Work at Rutgers University. I had stopped at Rutgers to visit friends of mine, and I was drawn to that meeting. And it turned out that meeting was Phyllis Frederick talking about her life with Meher Baba. I felt inwardly really, really drawn in. Phyllis Frederick was a longtime lover of, follower of Meher Baba. And I quickly read everything I could. First book I read was Listen Humanity. Then I read the discourses. I'll say I devoured the discourses because it provided answers to all the questions that I had about spirituality, about life. It was amazing. That weekend, Henry Kashauti was speaking at Meher Baba House in New York City. And I remember sitting in, it was a crowded room. I was in back of Henry, and he read The Highest of the High. And inwardly, I knew at that point that I had found my master. And it was just a tremendous feeling of celebration. I met at that meeting some of the old time Meher Baba lovers in New York, like Fred Winterfeld, John Bass, some of the real old timers who went back to the 40s and the 50s. I quickly went back. I had one more semester of college, so I finished college and quickly got a job so I could save money to go to Mehrabad. So here comes October of 1970. A friend of mine, Brian Siobhan, and I had saved up our money, and we're making our pilgrimage to Mehrabad. We get on the Air India plane. Somebody had told me, make sure you wear a button of Meher Baba when you travel. So we're on the plane, and no sooner do we board the plane that I hear this voice saying, "Jay Baba, are you going to Mehrabad?" And I look, and this was in 1970, 55 years ago, and it's our friend Sam Patel, who, looking very dapper in his Air India flight attendant uniform, who welcomed us on the plane, Brian and myself, and assured us that he would be taking the best care and looking after us. This was the first time either of us were flying out of the country, much less to India. So that was a wonderful welcome gift from Baba. And it's come full circle now. 55 years later, Sam and I are here doing this Zoom meeting and relating this experience. There was a third woman, Baba lover, on the plane who saw my button, and that was Cindy Dotchek, who now is Cindy Lowe. Some of you may know her.
Mhm.
Wonderful singer and composer. She performed at Amartithi. So things really, really come full circle. That first trip to India was marvelous. The first evening that we're there, I was staying at Saroshan Vilu's, what they call Vilu Villa. And I remember sitting on the couch and Adi Keirani walked in. He sat next to me, and I had read all about Adi Keirani. And here I am meeting him. And he sat next to me and it very lovingly put his hand on my leg. And I felt like I could go home right then. Just an incredible experience sitting and talking to Adi and realizing here I am, the opportunity to actually meet these wonderful people who were Baba's Mandali. The first day at Merazad, I remember standing near Mara's porch and Dr. Goher coming over to me. And she grabs my hand and she points to the ring finger. And very emotionally, she says, Baba told us about you. He told us you would be coming. And he told us that each one of them, my young lovers from the West, and he pointed to his ring finger, each one of them is a gem to me.
Wow.
And I remember, of course, Baba's not talking specifically about me, but he's talking about all the young lovers who he knew would be coming in that period from the West, from the USA and Europe and from Australia, and how each one of them, Baba knew us all, and that each one was a gem to him. And that was just fantastic. One of the highlights of that first trip was going to Hamirpur, group of 6 Westerners. We were taken by Baba's Mandali Chuggin master. So that was just marvelous. Chuggin had a whole lifetime from I think the early days in the 20s with Baba, and we went up to 2 weeks in Hamirpur, attending the festivals commemorating the dates when Baba was in that village, which he refers to as his heart. And after being there and seeing the love of the people who had very little, and yet they were willing to give whatever little they had to all of us, it was quite an experience. And it was that first day in Hamirpur that I met people who were very, very impactful in my life. One of the most impactful was Khorshid, who had traveled up there with a group from Bombay. Khorshid, I always look at as kind of the female Mandali who was most impactful in my life. Spent a lot of time with Khorshid through the course of her life. She gave me invaluable advice about how to live a life with Baba. And we just enjoyed each other's company. I used to visit her in Dadar during my many trips to India. Now, I should preface this by saying that trip in 1971 was the first of 30 trips. I believe it's 30 that I've taken to India over 55 years. So I'd go quite often, much more so in recent years after I retired. But we would take Khorshid, we'd visit her in Dadar, and we would go take her across the street to the Pritam restaurant and just have a delightful time visiting with her. And then, of course, when she moved to she moved to Kushru quarters, be able to spend lots of time. And in the days when she'd like to get out and go to restaurants in the 80s, we would do that. And then we'd visit her when she wasn't as mobile and be with her in her quarters, but just marvelous. Adi Keirani, who I talked about meeting that first night, very impactful in my life. I got to spend a lot of time with Adi. Um, one of the great treats was in the 1979 Amartithi. Adi asked me to be with him, to sit on the stage with him at Amartithi, and I would run errands for him, get him a cup of tea or give a message to this person or that person. But it was just such an honor to be with Adi and to be asked to sit next to him, at the Amartithi, and just up and down and doing whatever he needed. During my visits there in the 70s, kind of made a Wednesday night date with Adi that himself, Jack Small, and I, and maybe one other person would often go out to restaurants and just sit and just delight in Adi's stories. Of course, the opportunity to meet all the Mandali who were so much alive, from 1971 on, is one of the great, great things in my life. I remember sitting on the benches at Meherazad, and this was in 1975, and I was sitting next to Peter Townsend, the who had visited from London, the famous rock star. And we're sitting there just amazed as many people had arrived, at Amartithi time, and the Mandali were lovingly greeting each one of them. I remember him turning to me and saying, isn't it amazing that these wonderful people are being so loving to a bunch of freaks like us? Hey, between each other, sometimes we use the word freak and he used it to refer to people, um, who had the longer hair and came from that generation. Yeah. So, is there any question?
Does anyone have any questions?
No, uncle, doesn't seem like. Can continue, Alan.
Yes.
May I request Ram Nori to please switch off the video? Thank you. Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Yes. So the in talking about Mayor Baba, one of the great decisions I made back in 1976 is to move to Myrtle Beach. I had the opportunity, and I was living at finished school, and I finished graduate school in Boston, Massachusetts. And there was a wonderful Baba group in Boston that I was part of. That early group included people like Charles Haynes and Bob Aarons, so many people, Hugh Flick, Steve and Daphne Klein, so many vibrant people. But I had been to the center and I had been a couple of times to Mehrabad by this time. So the appeal of being in a northern city, a big city, started to get less and less. And I had the opportunity to get I went to Myrtle Beach, and at that time I had a degree in education. This was before I became a coach. So I had an opportunity to get a teaching job in Myrtle Beach and jumped at that opportunity and moved to Myrtle Beach. And now it's almost 50 years that I've lived in Myrtle Beach. But that was one of the great decisions of my life. because 50 years living a 10-minute drive from the Mayher Spiritual Center, what a blessing. You know, the only thing that eases the heartache of leaving Maribod is knowing that I'm coming back to Myrtle Beach, and it makes it so much easier. And even though I lived a very, interesting and worldly life, um, I always had the center. And in 1979, I got married. In 1980, we had our first child, two daughters and two grandchildren. Um, my first wife, Tanya, she and I are still friends, and longtime Baba lover, lives in the Myrtle Beach area. About 12, 13 years ago, I married my current sweetheart and wife, Rita, and that's been just wonderful. Now we're about to celebrate our 13th anniversary the day after Baba's birthday. So it's always special because we have Baba's birthday and our anniversary is the next day. And I proposed to her at the NPR in 2011 in India. And that's been wonderful because we've had the opportunity to, as we say, try to do exactly what Baba said, to use the marriage as a vehicle to go to the threshold itself. So what a exciting daily inspiration it is to try to live up to that. We have a phrase, each day we say, the extraordinary of the ordinary. Um, but it's by all appearances, an ordinary life, an ordinary marriage, but it's truly extraordinary when it's lived for Baba, and that's what we both try to do. And all all very, very, very exciting. So to give a little background, I was working as a teacher. So in 1979, I had taken a year off and I had traveled to Maribod, for the Amartithi. We also traveled to Baba places all over Europe, Assisi and Avila. I've been fortunate to do lots of travel and to have been to the four holy spots in Europe that Baba talked about, and to be at some of them multiple times. But in 1979, I came back to Myrtle Beach and I interviewed for a teaching job at the local high school. And the principal at the time knew that I was a runner. I wasn't a great runner, but I'd been running, recreationally for about 3 or 4 years and running races, road races, 5Ks, 10Ks, even up to half marathon, which is 12 miles, 13 miles, 13.1 miles. And he said, well, we need a coach. We need a cross country coach, a boys cross country coach. So that started my career in athletics as a coach. And I was left some very good athletes, but I also found that I had a real passion for coaching. And I had a passion for being able to inspire and motivate others. So after a few years, our teams won the South Carolina State Championship. I started coaching the girls' track team. And after a few years, we won South Carolina State Championship. So in 1986, the university here contacted me and they needed to start a cross country and track and field program and asked if I was interested. So that's how I began my coaching career. And that was a real, you talk about a career, being able to have a career where you don't have to work a day in your life because you love your job so much. That's how I would characterize career in coaching. And we had great success A lot of that success was due to, well, it was all due to Mayor Baba, but lots of recruiting too. We were able to go all over the world and recruit really good, strong young athletes from Africa, Europe, Australia, New Zealand, all over the world. Um, the the 28 years coaching career as the head coach of the track and field and cross country team, and we had great success. It wasn't anything extraordinary that I was doing. Um, I always say it was Mayor Baba's touch that did that. But in that 28 years of coaching cross country and track and field, we won 28 league or conference championships in the two sports. Um, and we developed athletes who went, one of our athletes went all the way to the Olympic team for the USA. She was on 3 consecutive Olympic teams over a 12-year period. The career as a coach allowed me to travel all over the world to competitions and also for recruiting. But some of the most memorable experiences very connected with Mayor Baba. I remember being in Beijing, China for the World Championships. Our athlete was competing for the USA in the World Track and Field Championships. And I remember contacting Mayor Baba lovers in Beijing, and that was a great thrill. They came to the hotel. There was a small group of them. They didn't speak English very well, but we had the grandest time. We broke through the barrier by walking through the streets of Beijing, just singing Baba's name over and over and over again. That
Wow.
was some that was something you can do in any language. So um, I I taught him a simple song repetition of Mayor Baba's names, and here we were walking through the streets of Beijing, just taking Baba's name. Um, Another memorable trip, and you can see how the worlds collided sometimes and blended together, was in Serbia. We were there for the recruiting at the European Junior Championships, where the best young athletes from Europe, from all over the world, competed for their countries. And it was in Novi Sad, Serbia. But because there was a large, I'd say about 20 Baba lovers living in Serbia, and many of them were in Novi Sad. And some of you may have met Dr. Gus and Rada. Rada, who was a nurse for years at Maribad, and Gus was a doctor, um, lived in Novi Sad. And so did a number of other Baba lovers. So during the day, I'd be recruiting at the competitions, and the evenings we'd be spent with Baba lovers. And on that final Sunday, we had a large gathering at Radha's house of, I'd say, about 15 or 20, and just had the most marvelous time. Another time we were in London, and again for the World Championships, and I got to get together with the local Baba lovers and had a delightful time with being brought and taken out for tea with Hildur Kotwal, who had grown up in at the trust compound with Baba. So these experiences are just wonderful, but they pale in comparison to the many, many years, over 30 trips and the wonderful experiences with Mayor Baba's Mandali, and just a life just so grateful. Uh, Life in Myrtle Beach in India, for the career I've had, for the wonderful family, 2 daughters, I think I mentioned 2 grandchildren, and they live in Charleston. So very close. It's about a 2.5 hour drive from Myrtle Beach. So, by the way, Myrtle Beach, which is a beautiful area and it's a resort area, and we get about, I think, 18 to 20 million tourists a year come here. And we pride ourselves on sunshine 300 days a year. Of course, the center is the most beautiful place in Myrtle Beach. But outside today, when I started this call with the wind chill, the temperature was -7 degrees Celsius. So we're having one of our coldest spells. This is coming towards the last part of winter, but it usually passes, and within a week or so, the temperatures they say will be back up in the 20s Celsius again. So I want to stop talking now and see if anybody has any questions.
Does anyone have any questions? Ask now or hold your
No,
breath forever.
no question. Just say Jai Baba from Ashram.
Oh, Ashu, it's very nice, very nice. Ashu, this Ashu and her family, I want to say, and it ties in with my trips to Hamirpur. I met Gokern and Irmila in Hamirpur in 1975, and met Ashu and her sister. How old were you at that time, Ashu?
I think about 7 or 8.
We
Yeah.
we just had a delightful time, and took pictures with Ashu and her sister, on the backs of myself and Steve Klein. We were at Mayor Puri, I think. This was in 1975, which was my second trip to Hamirpur. And later that year, I got to go to Rewa and spend time with the Srivastava family, and that was just wonderful.
Yeah.
And I told Ashu about the meeting, so I'm so glad you could join us.
Yes.
And also during that same trip going to Rewa, I stopped in Jabalpur. I know Sam had just gotten back from Jabalpur, and I stayed with Vijay Meshram, or Vijay Badekar, as he's known now. His father was a longtime follower, disciple of Mayor Baba's, and I got to spend some days in Jabalpur and see the famous sites, the river and the falls where Baba, those pictures were taken of Baba, and meet some of the Baba lovers in Jabalpur. So those were wonderful experiences, and it's delightful to see the children that I knew back in the 70s grow into such wonderful adults and have children, in some cases grandchildren of their own now. Life really does come full circle. So it's wonderful.
Okay, Alan, there are just two questions. One
Yes.
from Dilshad Kapadia. She wants to know, what did you teach at Myrtle Beach?
Yes. When I taught, I had a master's degree in special education, and it specialized in working with children with emotional problems. The inspiration from that came from my first trip to Mehrabad, when I was, wondering what kind of career. I had just graduated college, and at some point I thought I wanted to be an attorney. I had no idea that my career would be as an athletic coach, but I remember feeling very inspired, around children. And I felt compassion for children who had lived under very difficult circumstances, who'd gone through abuse, and which often leads to emotional problems. So the inspiration for that came from being at Mehrabad. I returned to Boston, entered a graduate program, and got my master's degree. And that led to teaching. The teaching led to a career, for a brief time. I was teaching, and that's when I started coaching from 79 to 86. And then in 1986, I was hired by Coastal Carolina, and that led to my 28-year career as the head athletic coach for the sports of athletics, or as we call it in the United States, track and field and cross country. I retired in 2014, and even though I retired, I've continued. The Board of Trustees at the university named me as head coach emeritus, a lifetime title, which allowed me to be able to travel with the team and whenever I chose to. So this has been wonderful because I've been able to stay engaged, but to do it at my pace. And just wonderful to be able to do that, and a way to give back to the coaches and the current athletes. So thrilled to be able to still be part of that, but to be able to do it at the pace that's comfortable to me. So the irony was I had a career as an athletic coach. I never was an elite or great athlete myself, but sometimes those of us who were not extraordinary great athletes make pretty good coaches. And a lot of that is the ability to relate to people, to treat people the right way, and to be able to motivate, encourage, and inspire. And, those Baba has given me the skill set to be able to do that.
Meher has raised her hand. Meher,
Yeah,
you
Jai
have a-
Yes.
Baba.
Jay Baba.
Yeah, you were mentioning you had gone to Oregon in US.
Yes.
Did you meet this thing or Betty Lohman? Do you know her?
I know the name. No,
She's a Baba lover.
yes, I've heard her name. I hadn't had the pleasure to meet her.
Mm.
We do, interesting enough, that house in Eugene, Oregon, where I first saw Baba's poster and had that interconnection at 14, I remember the address, 1450 High Street. We go back to Eugene fairly often, once or twice a year, because it's the home of major national competition in our sport in the United States. And at 1450 High, I like to go to 1450 High Street because that's where the story, part of the story began. Now that house that I had walked into has been replaced by a bank. So sometimes I just stand reverently in front of the bank and remember the connection. People, onlookers might say, that's strange, that man's just standing in front of the bank, but they don't know the real story behind that.
Yeah. Okay.
To
But
add to that,
I have had the opportunity to meet other
Baba
Baba
lover.
lovers from Eugene and from that area when I go back there.
hey coach, this is Ram Nori, Jai Baba.
My brother Ram Nori, hello.
I'm doing well. Betty actually is from Palo Alto, and she lived in near Portland. She was not in Eugene, and I
Okay.
think she moved back to Palo Alto after David passed away.
Yeah, she just moved. She just moved.
Yeah,
She's just moved.
yeah.
Yes. Ram, I didn't see enough of you at Maribad. Just a brief hello.
I know. So I came in very late, this time around. So hopefully next time I'll no, this time I'll come. I'm going to be in US again, sometime around August. Hopefully
Ah,
I can make a trip to Asheville. Foremans have been asking me for a long time.
and hopefully a trip to Myrtle Beach as well.
Definitely, yeah.
We'll make sure to have you hook up with Elvis Presley, Damien.
Damien's in India now.
Yes, he's still in India.
Yeah.
I got to spend good time with him when I was there.
Yeah.
So it was great seeing you, although it was for brief.
For a very short period of time. Yeah.
And I would ask where you were, and they always said you were with Jal Uncle. So I understand that.
Yeah.
Hello, Alan.
Yes, hello.
This is Gokaran.
Gokern.
Yeah, very nice to see you.
Yes, good to see. It was wonderful seeing you at Mehrabad, Gokern.
And I wish that you share your that very important qualification which was bestowed upon you by Padri, the loonies in the early days.
The yes. Thank you, Gokern. I'm so glad you're on the meeting. Did you hear me talk about my time in Rewa?
Yeah.
Yes. So, yes, Padre used to refer to the early Westerners in 1971 as loonies.
Yeah.
And, we had the opportunity then to go and spend 4 days at a time at Lower Mehrabad and Mehrabad.
Yeah.
And there'd be groups of like 4 or 5. And it was wonderful to be with Padre.
Yeah.
But he often just referred to us as loonies.
Yeah.
And one memory, one story that I really liked is a good friend of mine, Fred Stankus, who passed away a few years ago. Some of you may remember Fred, who sang Mononash Calypso, Mine, Stupid Mind. Why don't you go away and leave me behind?
Yeah.
Fred's first trip in 1972 to India, he stopped and he is in front of Padre. And he says to Padre, I'm not worthy of going to Mayor Baba's Samadhi. I've done so many things in my life, I'm not worthy. And Padre berated him. And he said, you loony? Are you saying my master made a mistake? My master does not make mistakes. He would not have brought you here if you were not worthy. Forget all this nonsense. March up to the hill and put your head on that tomb. Ask his forgiveness and forget about it. So Padre used to say, of course, in those days, there was no electricity in Mehrabad.
Yeah.
And Padre used to say all the way, through the 70s, that he didn't want electricity. And people said, Padre Kako, why not? He said, that will just bring more of you loonies. So that was wonderful. Another very special person of the Mandali was Pendu.
Yeah.
And used to love going there, and Pendu would sit in that chair, by the bus, by the blue bus, and spending time with Pendu. And I was honored at the 1976 Amartithi. About a month before the Amartithi, Pendu asked me if I would assist him in making, because he was basically still making a lot of the arrangements for Amartithi. And he'd asked me if I would assist him, which meant 1 or 2 days a week I would go around town with Pendu as he would stop and talk to different vendors or people who were putting up the scaffolding or whatever, or food people. And that was just wonderful to be asked to do that and to get that extra special time with Pendu at the 76 Amartithi.
Yeah.
And then he gave me the job of helping with the accommodations for the Westerners who were coming. So it was nice to be at the Amartithi and to be a worker like we were and get put to work like that.
Yeah.
So those are some very, very, very special memories.
And where did all the Westerners stay? Did they also stay in the tents?
At the Amartithi in 1975, I remember that the entire I remember sleeping in a big tent.
Yeah.
We had mattresses and we had our own, sleeping bags and whatnot. And many Westerners were accommodated, in one place. And we were very happy. It was wonderful to be all together like that.
Yeah.
Of course, at those early Amartithis, and we're in our 20s and 30s, one of our favorite things was being able to stay up with Erich, during the evening. Erich would often stay up for much of the night, and we would huddle with Erich. And I was talking with Sam, this last Amartithi, the weather was so warm, but I have these memories of the 70s and 80s. And Ram, I'm sure you do, and Sam.
Yeah, bitterly cold.
Of being with Erich, and it was bitterly cold at night. Even for us Westerners, we'd be getting our winter jackets out, and blankets and wool caps and huddled through the night. So those were great memories of Amartithi.
Yeah.
And later on, we got to take our children to Mehrabad. Now both my daughters and my granddaughter's 14, grandson is 10, are talking about us taking a family trip to Mehrabad. So that would be a wonderful opportunity to bring 3 generations there. Would be a wonderful opportunity.
Alan, when did you leave those beeries? Because you were so fond of beeries that time. I
Yes,
remember, yeah.
I had a little fondness for beaties from the early 70s till sometime later in the 1970s. As I was sitting smoking a beady one morning with, I think it was Craig Ruff, who later became a trustee. I don't know that Craig he was just sitting with me. And, had woken up, and first thing before doing anything was grabbing a beady. And I realized at that point what a disgusting habit that was. And one that I couldn't continue. So fortunately, I was able to give it up pretty early. It didn't lead to a lifetime of smoking, which is a good thing.
Very nice.
But yeah, interesting you remember that. And we used to stay at Oceanic in London that Peter Townsend had opened up, and it was a great place because Westerners traveling through England, or on to India or back to the U.S. had a wonderful place to stay. They had meetings there. He had his studio there. But one thing he would always do is ask me to bring him back carton loads of beaties from India. But interesting you remember that. and
Alan, are you
glad I
still in
broke that
touch with
habit.
Alan? Are you still in touch with Tom,
With who now?
with the Who group.
Oh, Peter. No,
Peter.
no.
Yeah, sorry.
Once Oceanic closed down, I had not been in touch, but I've met Bob lovers in London who've been in touch with Peter in recent times, and they say he's doing well. So those all are just wonderful memories. Another person who I got to spend a lot of time with, speaking of London, is Baba's younger brother, Adi Jr., who Adi and his wife, Franny, I was introduced to them by good friend John Foreman, who very, very kindly, funded a trip in the mid 70s. I talked about going to Europe and to Baba places and winding up staying in Mehrabad for 4.5 months. And it was through John's kindness that I was able to afford that trip. But during that time, John introduced me to Adi Jr. and Franny, and they lovingly invited us to stay with them. And that led to a friendship and many visits and nights over a period of years with Adi Jr. and Franny and Shireen and their family. So that was wonderful.
Alan, that particular time when you were visiting England, Delia De Leon was also there still. Do you remember something? Meeting with her?
I had the great fortune to get together with Delia. I visited her at her place, at her flat near Kew Gardens, and we had a delightful time together. We had tea together, and she just told me wonderful stories. It was great to be able to be with her, spend time with her. Another one of the longtime Baba lovers in London that I got to visit in the 70s was Fred Marks. Recently, a new book has been put out about Fred. And, just to sit one-on-one and hear these wonderful stories, people like Delia and Fred, and of course, his Baba's younger brother, Adi Jr. It's just been a wonderful privilege and honor to be able to do all that. Yeah, those were highlights and of those many trips in and through London and England.
Any particular thing which you remember about Adi Jr., his behavior, his personality, like Padri you described?
Adi had he was a jokester, and he had a wonderful sense of humor, but he liked to I call people like Adi people who like to stir the pot, So he liked to evoke emotional reactions in people, and he put me through a few funny tests, and after like 15 minutes, he said he broke into a big smile and gave me a hug, and he said, "You're all right. I like you." So that was his kind of way of kind of testing people. He was delightful, and they were great hosts to us. Very kind to us. And even when I stayed at Oceanic, I would go and have dinner with Adi and Franny fairly often, because they'd be like, sometimes I'd be there for like 2 weeks. One time, Peter asked us, Peter Townsend was opening up a bookstore in Richmond, which was walking distance from Oceanic and Twickenham. It was called the Magic Bus. And we would help set up the store, put all the books on the shelves. And there was a great grand opening where many of his friends, many of the Baba lovers, some of his rock star colleagues, were all there, and they had a grand party to open it up, and that was delightful.
Yeah. Very good.
But it was wonderful, and of course Shireen was a teenager then,
Yeah.
and one story I just told Shireen and Jay. It was the early days when Shireen and Jay was studying Islamic art in London. So it was the early days of their just beginning to get to know each other and date. Of course, they've been married many years, and I wouldn't share this, but I've shared it, with them personally when I saw them in Myrtle Beach over the last year. And I remember sitting with Audie and Shireen asking Audie, and she was doing it with some trepidation, asking Audie if she could go to the Islamic art exhibit with Jay at the Royal Art Museum on Saturday afternoon. and she was asking, and Audie wanted to evoke a reaction. So he didn't say yes or no. He just was quiet for a period of time. And he's nodding his head. And he said, I have just one question, he says to Shireen. He says, why all of a sudden the bloody interest in Islamic art? He said, I've been trying for years to get you to be interested, and you never had any interest. And Shireen just got exasperated and ran upstairs. And Audie turned and just chuckled. He had enjoyed getting those kind of reactions from people. Oh, that's one of the memories.
Do you remember anything of Jay working for that Hajj Mecca? He was working from outside something, some engineering work, architectural work.
Yeah, I I remember him talking about, he had been doing some antique work, and but he didn't talk much about that. No, what you were particularly asking about, I don't remember anything, his relating anything about that.
No, I was asking about his experience, how they allowed him, because they are very particular, rigid, and very orthodox kind of people. So that was my question.
Yeah. He didn't share anything about that with me. No.
Coach, didn't he become a Muslim?
I'm sorry?
Didn't what's his name? Did he not become he converted to Islam? So that's why he was allowed. That's why he was allowed in Mecca.
I think
That's
I think you might be right about that, Ron, but I'm not 100% sure. But
neither am I. Yeah, so
yeah. I know Jay's done his work has just been extraordinary.
that's what I've been told. Yeah, so
Just extraordinary.
yeah.
And I got to visit with them, Franny and Shireen and Jay in some years ago, but it was a highlight, visiting with them at their home in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And that was wonderful. So many stories, right, Sam?
Yeah, that's true.
We want you to share more stories.
Well, I could talk for a long time. The the trip to Hamirpur in 1971. I think we were the first group of Westerners to go through these different villages. You know, the main Mela that year was held in Naranga. And we were accompanied, as I said, by Chuggin Master, who was just wonderful. I'll tell you, the group of 6 Westerners was myself, John Foreman, Gil Alvarado,
Mm.
Eric O'Nadell, Patrick Carlson, who passed away a few years later, unfortunately, in a car accident, and a woman from Colorado named Anne. We also had Mayernot traveling, Bao's son Mayernot, who was 18 at the time, traveling with the group. And of course, I mentioned that I met Khorshid first day at Hamirpur, but I also met some of the other um, Bombay travelers who had gone up to Hamirpur with her. And I remember meeting Gulab Panchal and Adi Gaswala.
Ah,
I got to be good friends with Adi and visited him often in Mumbai over the successive years, you know, with him and his sister Gul and Roshan, his niece. Um, I'm sure, Sam, you must remember them well.
I sure do. I sure do. And
And
I
I
wonder if
remember,
you met
I re-
Roshan. Sorry, Alan.
excuse,
Did you meet
I,
Roshan? She was there during the Amar Titi at the NPR.
I did get to meet Roshan. You know,
Ah,
I've seen her over the last few years. I didn't get to spend that much time with her, but yeah, wonderful to reconnect with her. And I actually would stay with them sometimes in Dadar. They
mhm.
lovingly invited me, you know, if I was spending a night in Mumbai, to stay with them as well.
Mm.
And I remember Gulab Panchal joyously dancing through the streets of the villages of Hamirpur.
Who? Sorry, didn't get the name.
His last name was Panchal,
Ah,
Gulab
Gulab
Panchal.
Das Panchal. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He had a very joyful spirit.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. Oh,
We
yes.
were we were all dancing through the streets, you know, we were just overtaken with the joy
Mhm.
and the acceptance and love of the people, and Baba's love just permeating through the area was just wonderful. I remember waking up in the morning to we were all in the village of Naranga. We stayed at Mayor Dam. They had makeshift beds for us, and I remember waking up, hearing the sound of the farmers going out to the fields, just taking Baba's name over and over and over again. And
Wow. Mm.
I remember thinking, am I dreaming or is this real? But it was real.
Mhm.
And what a way to wake up in the morning.
Oh, yes.
Interesting enough, on the trip, there were no roads to go into Naranga. So we were taken by bus from Jhansi to a town called Rot. And from Rot, we were put on bullock carts and very bumpy, like 3-4 miles, you know, to get to the village of Naranga. And Gil Alvarado, who we affectionately started to call Dr. Gil, he was a doctor of natural medicine. Um, he got very sick in the bullock cart. And his head was on my lap, bouncing around, and there was a red line moving up his arm, his right arm. It looked like bright red, like an infection moving up his arm. And I remember one point as we're getting close to Naranga, he says to Chuggin, I think I'm going to pass out. Um, we got to the village of Naranga, and of course, they made a kind of big fuss about Gil. And there was a doctor, Dr. Rao from Himachal Pradesh, who came running over, and he had a medical bag. And Gil is lying there, and Dr. Rao takes out, prepares an injection, and injects Gil in the arm. And then we hear him go, whoops. And we say, what's wrong? And Dr. Rao says, good injection, wrong preparation.
Oh,
So fortunately, despite that, fortunately, Gil survived. And as we were going back on the train to Ahmednagar, Chuggin, we're sitting with Chuggin, and Chuggin says to us, I got so scared. And we said, what do you mean, Chuggin? He said, Gil said to me, Chuggin, when we were arriving, I think I'm going to pass out. And Chuggin said, I thought he was telling me he was going to pass away. And Chuggin said he was trying to figure out what it is that he's going to tell Erich and Mani and Adi that, well, I took 6 to Hamirpur, but I only brought back 5. So when we arrived in Hamirpur, there was talk among the people of Hamirpur and because of Gil's sickness, that we should return immediately to Ahmednagar, not proceed with the 2-week tour. And I remember Khorshid just vehemently saying, no, 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 Baba will take care of them. They must. Yes. I don't know what happened. I just hit something. Can you still hear me and see me?
we can hear you, Alan. It's just we can't see you. You check
Okay,
the button for video and switch it on.
okay. I think it's
Oh,
back
but
on now.
you're okay now.
Is the video back on?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay. Okay. Good. Good. So, the opportunity getting back to living at the center, such a wonderful thing. I mentioned that it's about my wife and I, our home is about a 10-minute car ride to the Mayor Center. Such a privilege, to be that close and to be able to get on that easily. And people come from all over the USA and all over the world to stay at his center. Um, I remember the thrill we had, Gokaran, when you were doing your studying in Iowa, I believe, and you got to come to Myrtle Beach and speak at the center. When we were together in Rewa, we had dreamed about that happening. So, and I wanted to ask Sam, had you been able to visit the center, during your time working for Air India
You mean at Myrtle Beach?
at Myrtle Beach?
Yes, I have. Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Long time back though, but I had it just once. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the beautiful things of the center is how they've maintained it, to
Yeah.
feel and look as it did when Baba was there in the 1950s.
Mhm.
And that's wonderful.
Yeah. It's a unique place. It's a unique place.
Yeah, when people who live in the Myrtle Beach area, have the opportunity to visit the center, they can't believe it.
Mm.
500 acres of virgin wooded land with the beautiful freshwater lakes going out to the ocean. They can't believe such a place exists in Myrtle Beach. So we're very fortunate to, the founders, Elizabeth and Norina and Kitty Davy and Jane Haynes, who founded the center, and Elizabeth's husband, who gave us the land for the center. And I always remember the story of Baba when he was leaving the center for the last time in 1958. As he's walking out of the gates for what he knew would be the last time, he turned to the people and he said, "Out of all the places I've called my home, all the places I've laid my head to rest, I love this the most because it was given to me
From the heart.
with so much love." And then they say Baba turned again and said, "I will never leave it."
Ah, how beautiful.
So what an inspiring
Yeah.
message to know every time we step foot there. And how it behooves all of us, who have a opportunity to volunteer there or to do whatever we do to cherish that center that Baba left us.
How fortunate you guys are.
Yes. And, I had the opportunity, and I think Ram was there too, if I'm not mistaken, in 2018 to go to the 60th anniversary at Avatar's abode in Australia, and found that same atmosphere at Avatar's abode. So Baba's left us those two, obviously Mehrabad and Merazad are the primary, but to leave us the centers in Australia and in Myrtle Beach are just great treasures. and those words of Baba, I try to remember each and every time I set foot on the center, to know how special it is. Any other questions or anything you want me to talk about? I'm happy. I don't know how much time we have left.
Well, Alan, if you can, we have already crossed the time limit, but that doesn't matter. It's not very often that we get a chance to meet, how do I describe it? Meet a coach like you. Okay, let me put, yeah. Is there one thing that you think you would like to pass on as a message to all of us as in Baba's remembrance or whatever?
I would like to talk, to wrap up my talking. And thank you again for this opportunity.
Please don't thank us. Thank the beloved.
And
He's
thank you, Baba.
Aye.
Um, that's what Mansari always used to say. When we would thank her for anything, she in those early days, she would always say, "Thank you, Baba." So
Jai does that now. Jai,
yes,
he does that now.
yes.
Yeah.
But I would want to talk about the power. This is one of the things that Bob has given me, and it was one of the successes I had professionally as a coach or as a teacher, is the power of attitude. I remember sitting in Mandalay Hall, and what days, to sit in Mandalay Hall listening to Erich and Mani, and those were such wonderful days. And when I go back to Mehrabad now, or to Merazad, I love to just sit in Mandalay Hall, even if I'm sitting by myself, the atmosphere there and the memories. But I remember Erich saying that we cannot control the things that happen to us, but the one thing we can always do for Baba is control the attitude that we bring to whatever situation happens to us. And that always made a huge impression to me. I remember reading early on from Inayat Khan, Sufi teachings of Inayat Khan. He talked about attitude. And this was something I used with my children and in my career all the time. And I took it from remembering in the early days, in the 70s, my early days with Baba, reading this from Inayat Khan. He said, attitude is the key to life. The right attitude makes even a bad situation good. And the wrong attitude makes even a good situation bad. And I found that to be so true in life. We can't control outside circumstances. We think we can, but we can't. I think the COVID epidemic showed that to the world. But we can control our attitude, and that's something we can do for Baba. And that's something, as Anayat Khan said, the power of attitude, by just simply working on one's attitude, it transforms the situation. And it ties directly with what Erich used to say. And often if I find myself, mired in some negativity, I'll just sit and say, well, Baba, it's time for an attitude adjustment. and it really works. It's amazing. We have the power to control our attitude. That's a gift that we're given by God. We're given by Baba. And speaking of attitude, one of the things that I pray every day in the morning is that I go through the day maintaining an attitude of gratitude. So if I ever get mired in being ungrateful, all I have to do is start thinking about all the so many things that have been given to be grateful about. So I call it, I tell people, I'd say to my athletes, hey, let's have an attitude of gratitude. It's a privilege to be able to do what we do. It's an absolute privilege. Let's be grateful for that. And my children, now they're adults, they're in their 40s. And now, we were at Thanksgiving dinner and we were talking about, we went around the table and extended family and talking about what we have to be thankful for. And simultaneously, my two daughters and my two grandchildren all said, for Papa or Dad teaching us to have an attitude of gratitude.
Wow.
So it's something that part of what I pray every day too is not just keeping my spirits uplifted, having an attitude of gratitude, realizing the extraordinary of the ordinary, but to have the opportunity when given to inspire and motivate others. And we can do that every day. Just an ordinary encounter, out walking in the park can change somebody's day and somebody's outlook. And it's just wonderful to maintain, to have that awareness and the ability to do that. You never know what a word of kindness is going to do. Or the ability to uplift another. These are great gifts in life. So that keeps me going.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you very much. You don't know how good you've spoken. It's probably because he must have taken over and spoken through you. That's what I feel.
Isn't that always the case? So
Yes, it is. It is. Because there were so many things that we've learned from this talk of yours. And this final thing about the attitude of gratitude is what I personally take it as his message for all of us.
well, I'm glad I could share that. It really is meaningful to me, and over the years, I think it's helped others. And it's really something that we can do. That Bob has given us the power to do.
Yeah.
That's the only thing we can do. We can control our attitude. And by doing so, it keeps us happy and smiling.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody has any final questions to ask before we get into prayers and Aarti and all that? See, Alan.
I want to say Jai Baba to you.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Jai Baba, sir.
I'm Govardhan Gokand's younger brother from Bhopal.
Very Jai
I was in
Baba.
Viva when you visited. So Jai Baba to everybody.
Jai Baba, yes, good to see you again on this meeting.
Your long lost friend, yeah.
That's right. After many years, yes.
Yes. Nice to see you, Jai Baba.
I remember meeting you in Rewa many years ago.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Anybody else has any questions?
No question, but what Alan has taught us about gratitude. So we must be grateful to the organizers of this wonderful program. So Sam, our gratitude to you and to the Bombay Center.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah.
Dr. Saab?
Yes, yes.
There was no need for this. It is all his and his alone. It's only him that is making us dance around like this. All these formalities just don't count anymore. It doesn't count anymore, Dr. Saab. It's what Alan spoke from his heart, which has touched, at least I can speak for myself, it has touched my heart so deeply. And I'm sure it must have some point or the other touched each and everyone on this Zoom meeting, because he spoke as Baba from within him to the Baba residing in all of us. And that is where we got connected. Nothing more, nothing less. And Alan,
Yes.
I sincerely wish we can again connect together. And I'm sure you must be having so many more stories. So maybe after a week or two, after from Ashima to everyone, great story session like in Mandli Hall. Wow. Alan.
Yes.
This is called attitude of flattery. Yeah. But after we tie up the birthday sessions and everything, we would like to get you on again and listen to some more of your talks. Okay.
Well, Sam, that would be a pleasure. Absolutely.
Aye, sir. Okay. Now, for those of us who do not know, we will do the prayers in conclusion and perhaps an Aarti. I don't know if Havovi is there. Yeah, Havovi. Requesting you to kindly remain rename your iPhone 4 to your name. Thank you. Folks, this para is monitoring the people coming into this meeting. The reason being that there have been times when the meetings have been hacked. And therefore, we request you to not just say iPhone 4 or iPhone and Samsung and all that. Please identify yourself so that she can allow you to come into the meeting room. Now we go into the prayer, then we do the arti, then we hold a minute's silence, and then we depart in his love. So Farah, can you please do us a favor and do the prayer? Or Alan, would you like to do the prayer?
I'll do with Farah doing the prayer.
No, okay, yeah, all right.
The Aarti, you can do the prayer if you're fine.
Sorry?
I can do the Aarti and Alan uncle can do the prayer if
Oh,
it's
that's a better suggestion. Alan, you can do the prayers and she'll do the artis, okay?
Which prayers are you doing? Oh, all three prayers?
All three, yes. Are you good at it?
I'm pretty good at it.
So go ahead.
Okay.
Here we go.
Yes. O Parvardigar, the preserver and protector of all. You are without beginning and without end, non-dual, beyond comparison, and none can measure you. You are without color, without expression, without form, and without attributes. You are indivisible, and none can see you but with eyes divine. You always were, you always are, and you always will be. You are everywhere, you are in everything, and you are also beyond everywhere and beyond everything. You are in the firmament and in the depths. You are manifest and unmanifest on all planes and beyond all planes. You are in the three worlds and also beyond the three worlds. You are imperceptible and independent. You are the creator, the Lord of lords, the knower of all minds and hearts. You are omnipotent and omnipresent. You are knowledge infinite, power infinite, and bliss infinite. You are the ocean of knowledge, all knowing, infinitely knowing, the knower of the past, the present, and the future, and you are knowledge itself. You are all merciful and eternally benevolent. You are the soul of souls, the one with infinite attributes. You are the Trinity of truth, knowledge, and bliss. You are the source of truth, the ocean of love. You are the ancient one, the highest of the high. You are Prabhu and Parameshwar. You are the beyond God and the beyond God also. You are Parabrahma, Allah, Elahi, Yezdan, Ahuda Mazda, and God the Beloved. You are named Izad, the only one worthy of worship. We repent, O God, most merciful, for all our sins, for every thought that was false or unjust or unclean, for every word spoken that ought not to have been spoken, for every deed done that ought not to have been done. We repent for every deed and word and thought inspired by selfishness, and for every deed and word and thought inspired by hatred. We repent most specially for every lustful thought and every lustful action, for every lie, for all hypocrisy, for every promise given but not fulfilled, and for all slander and backbiting. Most especially also, we repent for every action that has brought ruin to others, for every word and deed that has given others pain, and for every wish that pain should befall others. In your unbounded mercy, we ask you to forgive us, O God, for all these sins committed by us, and to forgive us for our constant failure to think and speak and act according to your will. Beloved God, help us all to love you more and more and more and more, and still yet more, till we become worthy of union with you, and help us all to hold fast to Baba's Daman till the very end. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.
बुझावे नार जहलतनी ये घर खुद रत्ने फरमातु छलागी आश भक्तों ने थे बख्शे नूरे मातु अयाम शद मेहर बाबा चरण पर तुझ न दरिए सर उदाना जात थी वाकिफ थई बे हो मेहर बातू तुझे माँ लेख हकीकत नो तू आशे भी ने आरिफ भी तुझे डरी याए वहिदत मारिफत नो होई तू फातू हमोर है रफने साले बख्शे ज्ञान सदनो के तू पर महात्मा ज्ञानी छनय मो तारे रफातु खुदाना प्रेमनो प्यालो पितावी मस्त हमने घर छे तुझ पर जान सद के साथिया पी दे बयमा तू हमारी नाव
Janice, Farah, are you all there? Farah? Does anyone know what's happened?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure what happened.
Well,
I got a message that the recording has stopped, though.
yeah. Something. Farah, are you there?
Yes. I think my internet dropped. I will continue with the
okay.
other. Yeah, I'll continue.
Okay. Now, I would request Havovi, if possible, to sing the Australian Aarti, please. Havovi, are you there? No, she doesn't seem to be responding. Rita Kohli? No? Okay.
Is it all right now?
Yes. Havovi,
Yeah, okay.
can you do the Australian Aarti, please?
Oh, glorious, eternal, ancient one, your face is a bright transcendent star, lighter this dark world and the tears I weep. My heart may I give to you to feel. Create yet creationless you are, truth and truth body divine avatar, who through compassion the three words maintain, destroy this ignorance that life sustains. These fine lights are the whirling spokes of breath of the world's wheel that bears me on today. Unless you who are infinitely kind break the wheels heart which is conditioned mind. This is senses my love, these fruits of my art, which to please you I have shaped from my heart. Accept them as you would a simple flower that has no use beyond its shining heart. You are myself, I sing to you in praise and beg your love to bear me through the day till you, the ever-living perfect one, illumine my darkness with your shining sun. I mean, Avtar Meher Baba ki jai.
DJ.
Avtar Meher Baba ki jai. Avtar Meher Baba.
Baba Ki Jai.
Jai, jai, jai.
We shall now
Hey, Baba.
hold a minute silence. Beloved Avtar Meher Baba ki jai.
Jai.
Thank you, Baba, for giving us such a wonderful evening with such wonderful lovers of yours. May this tribe grow into the kind of lovers that you have always been wanting. Take us a few steps closer to you, Baba. That's all we ask from you. Thank you, everybody. Until we meet again, keep Baba with you. Bring him back when we come back again. Avtar Meher Baba ki jai. Thank you.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Baba.